Hey bitches, Merry Christmas Eve!
Hello, Merry Christmas Eve!
Yeah, normally this would have been up yesterday, but, life happened.
But I was traveling all weekend, and
And I'm sick if you couldn't already tell.
yeah, we planned to do this yesterday, but we couldn't. Jamie was throwing up.
Yep, and now I just sound
Poor
like
pumpkin.
like the most nasally bitch ever. So please excuse
okay.
me. Any and all sniffles and coughs I will try to edit out, but I make no promises that I can't keep.
Right. Also, we're sorry for last week's episode. We were a little breathy. We fixed it.
Kind of.
Kind
We
of.
tried.
That's our bad. But
Yeah.
this week it should be better.
Yeah, I think we sound as normal as we're going to.
Yeah.
I mean, you sound great.
And this is Hot for Justice.
If you were unaware.
That nasally person is Jamie.
Yes, and the mother of that baby that you just heard is Jessica.
Yes. I've been texting Jamie for like the last hour and a half because we've been trying to record, and I'm trying to get the baby to sleep, and she just refuses. Like every time I move, she pops her little eyes open and she's like, "Hey, where you going? Don't think you're leaving."
Mom, what are you doing?
Right. So, yeah, we have a guest star today. Her name's Emerson.
Yes, she's the cutest. Honestly, the
She's
cutest
in
guest star we've ever had.
I think so.
Sorry, Zach. Sorry, Jackson.
Right.
You know,
But you can't compete. She's
Yeah.
just really cute.
honestly, the cutest.
And she's got a Santa outfit on right now.
I know, it's honestly
pretty fresh.
killing me.
I'll post it on our Instagram.
Please
It'll
do.
be the episode cover thing.
Yes, I'm here for that.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you hear any cats
So-
purring, that's my two furry idiots. I'm currently recording in bed because I can't be bothered to do it elsewhere.
You know, it happens to the best of us.
Yeah, and they're loud as fuck.
And you're
so.
sick. Well, hey, if someone rings the doorbell or my dogs hear something, it's gonna be all hell breaking loose. So,
So we're clearly thriving.
yes, clearly, very clearly. And with that being said, I'm gonna head right into my
Yes.
murders.
And you said this was
Today.
like adjacent to what you talked about last week?
So I think that you could maybe make a supposition regarding last week's case with this week's case.
Ooh.
And Emerson agrees with me.
Excellent.
So I'm going to head right into it. I never heard of these, but apparently they call these murders the Gypsy Hill Killings, and they started in 1976 in the Bay Area. And it happened for about 4 months that there were several victims, and so they thought it was a serial killer. Did you do the same one?
Jackson did this when he covered during your maternity leave.
No! Oh my god.
Oh, fuck.
Well, shit. I don't have another one.
It's okay, keep going.
No.
This is a different perspective.
Oh my god.
I'm dead.
Okay. Well,
I was like, wait a minute, this sounds oddly familiar.
crap. Yeah, I still haven't obviously caught up on listening since I was on maternity leave.
Fake fan.
I don't...
No, just honestly go on, and it'll be a recap for anyone that hasn't heard that episode. And or a different
Okay.
perspective. Maybe you'll cover something he didn't. I don't know.
Maybe.
And honestly, this
All
was
right,
months ago, and I
well-
already half forgot about it. So
Fair.
I just remembered the name.
Okay, so they thought that it was one serial killer, but they were wrong. And that's like recently been proven that they were wrong.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So the first victim, her name was Veronica Cascio. She was 18 when she was found murdered. She was discovered January 8th in 1976 in Pacifica, California. She was found by a young man who was walking through a golf course, and he found her nude body stabbed more than 30 times. Initially, police thought that a homeless man was responsible, and he was arrested in connection with the murder, but that was later found he had nothing to do with it. About after a month after Veronica was found, a woman named Paula Baxter was found in a grove of trees in Millbrae, California. She had last been seen February 4th leaving a play rehearsal at her high school in San Bruno. So I don't really know how close those two cities are together.
So they're pretty close. They're both really close to San Francisco.
Yeah.
San Bruno, my cousin lives there. It's like kind of like close to like South City, if you're
Yeah.
familiar, and like the like SFO airport.
Okay, yeah.
And Millbrae is, I think, a little bit just a little more east,
Uh-huh.
kind of like closer towards like Marin and all that.
Gotcha. Yeah. So she
Also,
was
really quickly,
found.
I just looked, and I'm a fucking idiot. I did do this one.
Did you?
But it was the same episode that I was on with Jackson that we did. So that's why I
Okay.
think I got my
Okay.
wires crossed. But so yeah, because I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this does sound familiar, and then I was like, oh yeah, I fucking researched it. So
Whoops.
hey, but you know what? It took us almost a year to like do the same one, which is
That's true.
honestly impressive.
It is. It is.
Anyways,
We almost did the same one a while ago, but we stopped
we did.
ourselves. Um, well, crap.
It's okay. Go on.
She was found behind an LDS church in Millbrae. She had been sexually assaulted, stabbed several times, and then hit on the head. And then investigators connected Veronica and Paula's murders by forensic evidence. A few weeks later, after Veronica went missing, so that's the first victim, 14-year-old Tatiana Blackwell, she went by Tanya, was reported missing. Police had assumed that she was a teenage runaway, but she wasn't. She was last seen walking to a 7-Eleven. So she was walking to a 7-Eleven in Pacifica. Her body was found a few months later in June. She was found in the Gypsy Hill area, stabbed to death. And then investigators have connected another murder, but this one was in Reno, Nevada. Her name was Michelle Mitchell. She was a 19-year-old UNR student, which is University of Nevada, Reno.
Emerson's so jazzed about the Wolfpack.
Who was last seen. She is. She also feels a lot better now that she just threw up all over me. I know. So Michelle was last seen when her VW broke down on 9th Street and Evans Avenue. Her body was later discovered in the parking garage with her hands bound and her throat slashed. A woman named Kathy Woods was actually convicted for Michelle's murder and spent 35 years in jail. But then it was proven through DNA that she didn't commit the crime and she was released, which is nuts.
That's fucked up.
On its own. Yeah, it really is. March 15th. Carol Booth's husband reported her missing. She had last been seen alive in San Francisco. She frequently walked home from the bus stop through a shortcut, and she was found near that shortcut, stabbed to death, and she had been dumped in a shallow grave.
Oh, God.
Yep. And then a few weeks later, April 1st, Denise Lamp was supposed to meet her friend, and she never showed up. She was later found stabbed more than 20 times in the chest and arms in her Ford Mustang in an apartment in a parking lot of the Serramonte Center Mall where she worked in Daly City. So these cases were unsolved for years until 2014 when the FBI formed a task force to look through these murders. All the evidence was retested, well, not all of it, but the evidence was retested at this time. DNA from a cigarette that was found at Michelle's killing linked her to the Gypsy Hill killer, even though, that other woman was in jail for it. So that saliva on the cigarette butt matched the semen found at the other crime scenes of, Michelle, or of Veronica.
Isn't that so wild?
It really is.
How, a cigarette butt could exonerate somebody?
Yes, because, it caused her to be released from prison, which is nuts.
Yeah.
In 2015, Rodney Lynn Hallbauer, a 66-year-old, was in prison in Oregon, and he was charged with the killing of Paula Baxter and Veronica Cascio. At the time he killed them, he was free on bail from arrest from a rape that was committed in Reno. He was convicted and imprisoned in May 1976 of that rape. And in September 2018, he was convicted of the murder of Veronica Cascio and Paula Baxter. And they say he will likely be tried for Michelle's murder in Nevada as well.
Yeah, and the wild stuff about all this is the MO for all of them seemed so different.
Right, and it's really sad.
Yeah, and he got around.
Yeah. Well, they thought he did the others as well, but then investigators re-examined the DNA, and they ended up finding out that Denise Lamp was actually murdered by a man named Leon Melvin Seymour. He had a history of violent sexual crimes, and he was already incarcerated at a state hospital. His first conviction dated back to 1973 with a kidnapping with intent to rape. And now he's 71 and he'd been charged with the 19-year-old girl's murder.
And if I remember correctly, I remember like looking him up, and like he is like one of the creepiest looking motherfuckers like
Yeah,
you'll ever
he
see.
is. He really is. Like, if I saw him by myself, at night or something, I would be afraid just looking at him.
No, 1,000%.
Like,
Like,
kind of like the hair on your back of your neck would stand up type of
uh
person.
huh.
Um, so there are two unsolved cases of the Gypsy Hill killings. 14-year-old Tanya Marie Blackwell of Pacifica and 26-year-old Carol Lee Booth of South San Francisco. Prosecutors say that there's not enough DNA to tie it to one person. So it seems like they have DNA, but there's not enough of it.
Yeah.
So if I don't know. And I was saying, the girl that I talked about last week who, even though, it seems something fishy seems up with like her dad not reporting her missing.
Yeah.
She was young and she was found like slightly buried in the sand, and she was, I can't remember. Did I say she was stabbed to death? I think she was strangled to death, but still,
Yeah, I think she was strangled.
She was young too, and you never really know, do you? So
Exactly. It absolutely could have been a serial killer.
yeah,
And maybe this one. Who knows? Because it was around the same time. Right?
yeah, it was 1976.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's kind of
shit's wild.
could be connected.
Yeah, I remember like when I had looked this one up, I had originally found the Tanya Blackwell on Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
And like a whole like thing about her, and then it was like, oh, by the way, she might be involved with this like Gypsy Hill situation. She might not be. It's not really like sure, and that's how I ended up finding it. And like the whole thing's very fucking interesting.
Yeah, it really
like, if you
is.
do a deep dive,
It is, yeah. But
yeah,
that's all I have.
okay, mine's fucking insane.
Okay, I'm ready for it.
Yeah, so I did my best to find like a Christmas related thing.
Solid.
Yeah. This is from, you probably guessed it, Wikipedia.com.
Yes.
Gonna use some of that ad revenue to make a fat donation to
Right.
Wikipedia. Okay, so this is the disappearance of the Soder children. Yeah. So Christmas Eve of 1945, a fire destroyed the Soder home in Fayetteville, West Virginia. At the time, it was occupied by George Soder, his wife Janine, or maybe might be Jenny, and 9 of their 10 children. During the fire, George, Jenny, and 4 of the 9 children escaped. The bodies of the other 5 children have never been found. The Soders believed for the rest of their lives that the 5 missing children had survived. The Soders never rebuilt their house, instead converting the site into a memorial garden to their lost children. In the 1950s, they came to doubt that the children had perished, and they put up a billboard site along State Route 16 with pictures of the 5 children offering a reward for information that would bring closure to the case.
I think I've heard of this before.
Really?
Yeah.
I had never. It remained up until the billboard remained up until shortly after Jenny Soder's death in 1989. So it was up for like the better part of 40 years.
Dang.
So in support of their belief that the children survived, the Soders have pointed to a number of unusual circumstances before and during the fire. George disputed the fire department's finding that the blaze was electrical in origin, noting that he had recently had the house rewired and inspected. He and his wife suspected arson, leading to theories that the children had been taken by the Sicilian mafia, perhaps in retaliation for George's outspoken criticism of Benito Mussolini and the fascist government of his native Italy. State and federal efforts to investigate the case further in the 1950s yielded no new information. The family did, however, later receive that what may have been the picture of one of the boys as an adult during the 1960s. Their one surviving daughter, along with their grandchildren, have continued to publicize the case in the 21st century in the media and online. So some family background. George Soder was born with the name Giorgio Sadu in Tula, Sardinia, Italy in 1895. He immigrated to the United States 13 years later with an older brother who went back home as soon as he and George had both cleared customs at Ellis Island. For the rest of his life, George Soder, as he came to be known, would not talk much about why he left his homeland. He eventually found work on the railroads in Pennsylvania, carrying water and other supplies to workers. After a few years, he took more permanent work in Smithers, West Virginia, as a driver. After a few more years, he started working He started working at his own trucking company, at first hauling fill dirt to construction sites and later hauling coal that was mined in the region. Jenny Cipriani, a storekeeper's daughter there, who had also come to the U.S. from Italy in her childhood, became his wife. Oh my goodness, Emerson's so cute, I'm going to throw up.
I have her muted because she's being chatty Cathy right now.
She is, but really honestly, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Kills me. She absolutely kills me. So the couple settled outside of near Fayetteville, which had a large population of Italian immigrants, in a 2-story timber frame house 2 miles north of town. In 1923, they had the first of their 10 children. Yo, could you imagine having 10 children?
No. Oh my God.
Hard pass.
Like, that's a lot of time that you're spending pregnant, and
yeah.
Your lady bits will never be the same after 10 kids.
Well, I was going to say, after, like, the first, 3 or 4, those motherfuckers are falling out.
Yeah.
Yeah, her Vagooter was wrecked.
Vagooter.
That's the episode title.
Solid.
Right.
Yep. Vagooter.
That's my favorite word for a vagina, by the way.
Now I'm going to say that. I'm going to steal that. Normally, so my dog Harlow, as dogs do, like to lick themselves sometimes. And
yes.
I always tell her to stop licking her vagina, but now I'm going to start telling her to stop licking her Vagooter.
Vagooter is easily my favorite word for a vagina.
Yeah, I'm taking that. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm also a fan of Vaj Mahal, but honestly, Vagooter is my favorite.
That's solid, too.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm here all day.
I'm here all
day. Fuck. Okay, where am I? So they had a house, and in 1923 had the first of their 10 children. Good God. Anyways.
Bless her.
So his business started prospering, and they became one of the most well-respected middle-class families around. In the words of a local official, anyways. However, he did have strong opinions about many subjects. Jesus Christ, Jamie.
We're on a struggle bus today. We both can't speak.
I'm going to blame the cold medicine.
I don't have any excuse.
That's fine. He had strong opinions about many subjects and was not shy about expressing them, sometimes alienating people. Sounds like some people we know. In particular, his strong opposition to Italian dictator Benito Mussolini had led to some strong arguments with other members of the immigrant community. The last of the Sauter children, Sylvia, was born in 1943. So 10 children over 20 years. Good Lord.
Nope. Solid.
Yeah,
no.
and literally, because you're pregnant for 9.5 months or whatever.
Yeah, really, it's 10 months.
Yeah, so that 10 times, that's 100 months.
No,
is that math?
Thank you. I don't know if that's correct, but
excellent.
We'll go with it. How many years was that? That's a lot.
That's I don't.
It's a couple years. Anyways, let's move on.
It's more than a couple. It's probably the better part of 10 if I had to venture a guess.
It's a lot of years.
Many moons.
Many moons.
So by then, their second oldest son, Joe, had left home to serve in the military during World War II. The following year, Mussolini was deposed and executed. However, George Sauter's criticism of the late dictator had left some hard feelings. In October of 1945, a visiting life insurance salesman, after being rebuffed, warned George that his house would go up in smoke and your children were going to be destroyed.
Well, okay.
Yeah, sounds a little fishy. Because 2 months later, some shit goes fucking down.
Right, that's, coincidence? Probably not.
And this life insurance salesman had attributed all of this information to the dirty remarks you've been making about Mussolini. Another visitor to the home that was seeking work took the occasion to go around to the back and warn George that a pair of fuse boxes could cause a fire someday. He was puzzled by this observation since he had just had the house rewired with an electric stove installed. And the local electric company had said afterwards that everything was safe. In the weeks before Christmas that year, his older sons had also noticed a strange car parked along the main highway throughout town, its occupants watching the younger Sauter children as they would return home from school. So, again, a little creepy. And just a lot of weird coincidences, quote unquote.
Yeah, no.
I don't like it. Let's put it that way.
I don't believe in that many coincidences at one
Oh,
time.
hell no.
Surrounding one thing.
Yeah. Like I said, it all seems a little fishy.
Yeah.
Props not.
Props not.
So, the Christmas Eve 1945 house fire. So the Soders celebrated on Christmas Eve of 1945. Marion, the oldest daughter, had been working at a dime store in downtown Fayetteville and surprised 3 of her younger sisters, Martha, Jenny, and Betty, with new toys that she had bought them from her job as gifts. The younger children were so excited that they asked their mother if they could stay up past their usual bedtime to play with them. At around 10 p.m., Jenny told them that they could stay up a little later as long as the 2 oldest boys were still awake. This would be 14-year-old Maurice and 9-year-old Louis. They remembered to put the cows in and feed the chickens before going to bed themselves. George and the 2 oldest boys, John and George Jr., had spent the day working with their father. They were already asleep. After reminding the children of their remaining chores, she took Sylvia, who was 2 years old, upstairs with her, and they went to bed. The telephone rang at 12:30 a.m. Jenny woke up and went downstairs to answer it. It was a woman whose voice she did not recognize, asking for a name she was not familiar with the sound of laughter and clinking glasses in the background. She told the caller that she had reached a wrong number, later recalling that the woman had a weird laugh. She hung up and returned to bed. As she did, she noticed that the lights were still on and the curtains were not drawn, 2 things that the children normally attended to when they stayed up later than their parents. Marion had fallen asleep on the living room couch, so Jenny assumed that the other children who had stayed up later had gone up to the attic where they slept. God, could you imagine, not having enough, proper bedrooms for your kids and having to just sleep in, the attic or basement?
That's like, on Home Alone when they're like,
I was
Kevin,
just thinking that.
You're gonna sleep in the attic. What's new? I just watched that yesterday, so it's fresh, but yeah. No, I would not sleep ever.
Yeah, we were just talking about that, too, because we watched Home Alone and Home Alone 2.
Yeah.
And, who does that? Especially because, that was, a punishment for,
right?
The McAllisters.
Go to the attic to sleep.
You little shit.
Right? Jeez. No thanks. Also,
yeah, hard pass.
I was gonna say something, and now it's gone.
Perfect. If you remember, just stop me.
Oh, I was going to say, in Germany, our house had an attic, and I'm so creeped out by attics, I never stepped a foot in it. Ever.
Oh, I don't think I could either.
No.
No, thank you.
No. Hard no.
It's gonna be a no from me, dog.
Yep.
So she closed the curtains, turned out the lights, and went back to bed. At 1 a.m., Jenny was again awakened by a sound of an object hitting the house's roof with a loud bang and then a rolling noise. After hearing nothing further, she went back to sleep. After another half hour, she woke up again, smelling smoke. When she got up again, she found that the room George had used for his office was on fire, around the telephone line and the fuse box. She woke him, and he then in turn woke up the older sons. Both parents and 4 of their children, Mary and Sylvia, John, and George Jr., escaped the house. They frantically yelled to the children upstairs but heard no response. They could not go up the stairway itself as it was already aflame. John Soder had said in his first police interview after the fire that he had gone up to the attic to alert his siblings sleeping there, though he later changed his story to say that he had only called up there and did not actually see them. Efforts to find, aid, and rescue the children were unexpectedly complicated. The phone didn't work, so Marion ran to a neighbor's to call the fire department. A driver on a nearby road had also seen the flames and called a nearby tavern. They were unsuccessful either because they could not reach the operator or because the phone had turned out to be broken. Either the neighbor or the passing motorist was eventually successful in reaching the fire department from another phone in the center of town. George, who was barefoot, climbed the wall and broke open an attic window, cutting his arm in the process. He and his sons intended to use a ladder to the attic to rescue the other children, but it was not in his usual spot, resting against the house, and could not be found anywhere nearby. A water barrel that could have been used to extinguish the fire was frozen solid. George then tried to pull both of the trucks that he had used in his business up to the house and use them to climb to the attic window, but neither of them could start despite having worked perfectly the previous day. Frustrated, the 6 daughters who had escaped had no choice but to watch the house burn down and collapse over the next 45 minutes. They assumed the other 5 children had perished in the blaze. The fire department, low on manpower due to the war and relying on individual firefighters to call each other, did not respond until later that morning.
Could you imagine?
No, I would be so fucking
activate the
upset.
phone tree.
For real.
There's a fire. But yeah, no, that would be literally, that's my worst nightmare.
Yeah, and having nothing be able to, you can't do anything.
Can't do anything. And that just sounds like a series of unfortunate events.
Truly.
Yeah.
Fire Chief F.J. Morris said the next day that the already slow response was further hampered by his inability to drive the fire truck, requiring that he wait until someone who could drive was available.
Shut up.
How the fuck does the chief not know how to drive the truck?
Right? No. I'm sorry.
Like, that makes me, like, unreasonably upset. And, like, obviously this has nothing to do with me, and this was, like, what, like, 70 years ago?
But still. That's next level. Like, no.
Like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. The fire chief should know how to drive the goddamn truck.
Yeah.
The firefighters, one of whom was a brother of Jenny's, could do little but look through the ashes that were left in the Sodders' basement. By 10 a.m., the chief had told the Sodders that they had not found any bones, as it might have been expected if the other children had been in the house as it burned. According to another account, they did find a few bone fragments and internal organs, yuck, but had chosen not to tell the family. It was also noted by modern fire professionals that the search was cursory at best. Nevertheless, Morris believed that the 5 children unaccounted for had died in the fire, suggesting it had been hot enough to burn the bodies completely.
Yeah, that's wow.
Yeah, isn't that fucking insane?
Yeah, but like, don't fires have to burn for like days to completely burn a body?
It depends how
it has
hot
to be
they
like,
are.
right. Like, obviously you get cremated, but like an average fire. I remember this because Wes and I just watched Making a Murderer, and they talk about it, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think, I'm trying to remember, because I know, like, bones and organs will burn quicker than, like, teeth. Like, teeth are harder than bone.
Yeah.
So, you think there'd at least be teeth.
Right. Because normally, if there is something left, it's teeth.
Yeah. Because that's what I learned in that one podcast you had me listen to about, I fucking forget what it's called. Cold, maybe?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, one of them had teeth.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm also hopped up on cold medicine right now. I don't remember shit. Boop-a-doop-a-doop. So the aftermath of the fire, the chief had told George Soder to leave the site undisturbed so that the state's fire marshal could conduct a more thorough investigation. However, after 4 days, he and his wife could not bear the site anymore, so he bulldozed 5 feet of dirt over the site with the intention of converting it into a memorial garden for his lost children. The local coroner convened an inquest in the next day, which held that the fire was an accident caused by, quote, faulty wiring. Among the jurors was a man who had threatened George Soder that his house would be burned down and his children destroyed in retribution for the anti-Mussolini remarks.
Stop it.
Like, how the fuck is that allowed?
Right. It shouldn't.
Like, it's
in
like
modern days, it wouldn't be.
No, like, that's why they have jury screenings now.
Right. That's nuts.
Like, the whole thing about this, like, really pisses me off.
It's literally a series of unfortunate events.
100%. Maybe that's what the books were about.
Yeah. Right.
Death certificates for the 5 children were issued on December 30th. The local newspaper contradicted itself, saying that all the bodies had been found, but later in the same story, stating that only part of one body was recovered. George and Jenny Soder were too grief-stricken to attend the funeral on January 2nd, 1946, although their surviving children did. So, now we're going to get into some family questions about the official account. So not long afterwards, as they began to rebuild their lives, the Soders started to question all the official quote, official findings about the fire.
Right.
They wondered why, if it had been caused by an electrical problem, that the family's Christmas lights had remained on throughout the fire's early stages when the power should have gone out. They found the ladder that had been missing from the side of the house on the night of the fire at the bottom of an embankment 75 feet away. A telephone repairman told the Soders that the house's phone line had not been burned through in the fire, as they had initially thought it had been, but was cut by someone who had been willing and able to climb 14 feet up a pole and reach 2 feet away from it to do so. A man whom neighbors had seen stealing a block and tackle from the property around the time of the fire was identified and arrested. He admitted to the theft and claimed that he had been the one who had cut the phone line, thinking it was a power line, but he denied having anything to do with the fire. However, no record identifying him exists, and why would he have wanted to cut any utility lines to the Soder house while stealing the block and tackle, as that's never been explained. Jenny Soder said in 1968 that if he had cut the power line, she and her husband, along with their other 4 children, would have been able to make it out of the house. Jenny Soder had also had some trouble accepting Morris's belief that all traces of the children's bodies had been burned completely in the fire. Many of the household appliances had been found, still recognizable in the ashes, along with fragments of the tin roof. She contrasted the results of the fire with the newspaper account of a similar house fire that she had read around the same time that had killed a family of 7. Skeletal remains of all the victims were reported to have been found in that case. She burned small piles of animal bones to see if they were completely consumed. None ever were.
Yeah, it sounds really fishy because I'm pretty sure like a normal average house fire, it wouldn't be enough, like hot enough to completely burn the bodies.
Exactly. And actually, an employee of a local crematorium that she had contacted told her that human bones remain even after bodies are burned at 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 hours, far longer and hotter than the house fire could have been. The Soder's truck's failure to start also was considered. George Soder believed that they had been tampered with, perhaps by the same man who stole the block and tackle and cut the phone lines. However, one of his sons-in-law told the Charleston Gazette in 2013 that he had come to believe that Soder and his sons might have, in their haste to start the trucks, flooded the engines. Some accounts have suggested that the wrong number phone call to the Soder house might have also somehow been connected to the fire and disappearance of the children. However, investigators later located the woman who had made the call. She confirmed it was just a wrong number on her part. Here's some other subsequent developments. As spring approached, the Soders, as they had said they would, planted flowers in the soil, and sorry, I lost my place. As spring approached, the Soders, as they had said they would, planted flowers in the soil, bulldozed over the house. Jenny Soder had tended it carefully for the rest of her life. However, further developments in early 1946 reinforced the family's belief that the children they were memorializing might in fact be alive somewhere. There is evidence that supported their belief that the fire had not started in the electrical system and that was set deliberately. The driver of a bus that passed through Fayetteville late Christmas Eve said that he had seen people throwing, quote, balls of fire at the house. A few months later, when the snow had melted, Sylvia, one of the daughters, found a small, hard, dark green rubber-like ball object in the brushes nearby. George, recalling his wife's account of a loud thump on the roof before the fire, said it looked like a pineapple bomb hand grenade or some other incendiary device used in combat. The family later claimed that, contrary to the fire marshal's conclusion, the fire had started on the roof, although by then there was no way to prove it. Other witnesses claimed to have seen the children themselves. One woman said that she had been watching the fire from the road, and she saw some of them peering out of a passing car while the house was burning. Another woman at a rest stop between Fayetteville and Charleston said that she had served them breakfast the next morning and noted the presence of the car with a Florida license plate in the rest stop's parking lot as well. The Soders hired a private investigator named C.C. Tinsley from the nearby town of Gauley Bridge to look into the case. He learned that the insurance salesman who had threatened them with the fire a year before over George's remarks about Mussolini had been on the coroner's jury that ruled a fire an accident, and he told this to the Soders. He had also learned of rumors around Fayetteville that despite his report to the Soders that no remains had been found in the ashes, Morris had found a heart, which he later packed into a metal box and secretly buried. Morris had apparently confessed this to a local minister who confirmed it to George Soder. Isn't that illegal?
For what?
I don't know. For like a minister to tell something that's been confessed?
Yes, it is. I mean, it breaks.
I don't know
privilege.
if it's legal, but it's
like,
frowned upon.
I think it breaks their like whatever their rules are, and they could probably like get kicked out of the church or whatever.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
I've never.
I mean, it's
like
a huge deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Soder and the private investigator went to Morris and confronted him with this news. He agreed to show the two where he had buried it. They dug it up. They took what they found inside the box to a local funeral director who, after examining it, told them that it was, in reality, a beef liver that was very fresh and that had never been exposed to fire. Later, more rumors circulated around Fayetteville that Morris had afterwards admitted that the box with the liver had indeed not come from the fire originally. He had supposedly placed it there in hopes that the Soders would find it and be satisfied that the missing children had indeed died.
That's shitty.
That's super shitty. I can't even imagine trying to do that to somebody.
No, that's terrible.
Yeah. So then there was an excavation in 1949. George Soder didn't wait for reports of sightings to come in. Sometimes he made them himself. After seeing a girl in a magazine doing after seeing a girl in a magazine, like photos of young ballet dancers in New York City who looked like one of his missing daughters, Betty, he drove all the way to the girl's school, where he repeated demands to see the girl himself were refused by the school administrators. He also tried to interest the FBI in investigating what he had considered to be a kidnapping. Director J. Edgar Hoover personally responded to the letters. Although I would like to be of service, he wrote, the matter related appears to be of local character and does not come within the investigative jurisdiction of the Bureau. If the local authorities requested the Bureau's assistance, he added, he would of course direct agents to assist, but the Fayetteville police and fire departments declined to do so. In August of 1949, George was able to persuade Oscar Hunter, a Washington, D.C. pathologist, to supervise a new search through the dirt of the house site. After a very thorough search, artifacts including a dictionary that had belonged to the children and some coins were found. Several small bone fragments were unearthed, determined to have been human vertebrae.
Yikes.
They were sent, right? They were sent to a specialist at the Smithsonian Institution and were confirmed to be lumbar vertebrae, all from the same person. Quote, since the transverse recesses are still fused, the age of this individual at death would have been 16 or 17 years old, the report said. The top limit of age would have been about 22, since the centra, which would normally fuse at 23, are still unfused, thus given an age range of 16 to 22. It was not likely that these bones were from any of the 5 missing children, since the oldest, Maurice, had been 14 at the time of the fire. Newman added, Newman is the specialist at the Smithsonian. Mm-hmm. He added that the bone showed no sign of exposure to the flame. Further, he agreed that this is very strange that the bones were the only ones found, since a wood fire of such a short duration would have left full skeletons of all the children behind. The report concluded that the vertebrae had instead most likely come from the dirt that that Soder had bulldozed over the site. Later, the private investigator supposedly confirmed that the bone fragments had come from a cemetery in nearby Mount Hope, but could not explain why they were taken from there or how they came to be at the fire site at all. The Smithsonian returned the bones to Soder in September of 1949. According to his records, the current location is unknown. The investigation and its findings attracted national attention, and the West Virginia legislature had 2 hearings on the case in 1950. Afterwards, however, Governor Okie L. Patterson and State Police Superintendent W.E. Burchett told the Soders that the case was, quote, hopeless, and closed the case at the state level. The FBI decided it had jurisdiction as a possible interstate kidnapping, but dropped the case after 2 years after following a bunch of fruitless leads. The family has continued to investigate the case since. With the end of official reports to solve the case, the Soders did not give up hope. They had flyers printed up with pictures of the children offering a $5,000 award that was soon doubled later for information that would have settled the case for even one of the children. In 1952, they put up a billboard at the side of the house and another along U.S. Route 60 near Ansted with the same information. It would be, in time, become a landmark for traffic through Fayetteville on U.S. Route 19, which is today, it's State Route 16. Their efforts soon brought another reported sighting of the children. Ida Crutchfield, a woman who had ran a Charleston hotel, claimed to have seen the children approximately a week after the fire. I don't remember the exact date, she said in a statement. The children had come in around midnight with 2 men and 2 women, all of whom appeared to be of an Italian extraction. When she attempted to speak with the children, one of the men looked at me in a hostile manner. He turned around and began talking repeatedly in Italian. Immediately, the whole party stopped talking to me. She recalled that they left the hotel early the next morning. Investigators today do not, however, consider the story to be credible, as she had only seen photos of the children 2 years after the fire, 5 years before she had come forward. George Soder followed up on leads in person, traveling to areas from where the tips had come. A woman in St. Louis claimed that Martha was being held in a convent there. A bar patron in Texas claimed that he had overheard 2 other people making incriminating statements about a fire that happened on Christmas Eve in West Virginia some years before. None of these leads have proved significant. When George heard of a relative of Jenny's in Florida had children that looked similar to his, the relative had to prove that the children were their own before George was satisfied. That's kind of fucked up. In 1967, Soder went to the Houston area to investigate another tip. A woman there had written to the family saying that Louis Soder had revealed his true identity to her one night after having too much to drink. She believed that he and Maurice were living in Texas somewhere, but Soder and his son-in-law, Grover Paxton, were unable to speak with her. Police were able to help them find the two men she had indicated, but they denied being the missing sons. Paxton said later that he had doubts that the denial lingered in Soder's mind for the rest of his life. Another letter that they had received that year had brought the Soders what they believed was the most credible evidence that at least Louis was still alive. One day, Jenny found a letter in the mail addressed to her, postmarked in Central City, Kentucky, with no return address. Inside was a picture of a young man around 30 years old with features strongly resembling Louis's, who would have been in his 30s if he had survived. On the back was written, "Louis Soder, I love brother Frankie," and then a string of numbers. They had hired another private detective to go to Central City and look into the letter, but never reported back to the Soders, and they were unable to locate him afterwards. The picture nonetheless gave them hope. They added it to the billboard, leaving Central City out of it and any other published information out of fear that Louis might come to harm, and put an enlargement over the fireplace. Really, nothing's come up since. The whole thing's just really wild, honestly.
Yeah, so I mean, if they didn't die, like, why would they not go back to their families? Like, is the assumption they were kidnapped then?
Yeah, so, and those, like, first reports, like, people say that they thought they saw the kids in cars, like, leaving town. Like, the whole thing is very convoluted and just
It's
funky.
nuts. Well, I mean, yeah, and, like, the investigative, thing then was, like, nothing, so...
Yeah.
Techniques, I should say.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this is for, like, 1940s, so things were not nearly as advanced as they are now, but absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, that is nuts.
But yeah, so that's that. I don't have anything else. Do you have anything fun and exciting to share that you've watched or listened to or anything?
You guys watch the Netflix documentary Don't Fuck with Cats, because it's literally the most insane thing I've ever watched, and we're going to do a screen recap on it soon.
I know, I'm excited to watch it. I'm probably going to do that tomorrow morning.
3 episodes, it's binge watchable, it's insane. Like, insane. Please watch it.
Okay, I'm very excited.
Also, I will say that it's pretty disturbing, and, I mean, like, it might not be for everybody, like, because there's, like, torturing of animals, and there's, like, some videos, and it cuts off before you really see anything, but it's still, like, I mean...
It's still disturbing.
And there's a video of somebody getting murdered also.
Oh my god.
They don't really
You did not tell me that.
Yeah, they don't really, like, show, like, anything graphic, but you know what's happening, so it's... Yeah. So just a warning for some, like, people.
Yikes on bikes.
But it's literally so interesting. It's... Wow.
Huh.
Anyways.
I'll have to go
check it out. But, yeah. So, Merry
I'm
Christmas.
I've been watching anything. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Nothing wild. Oh, actually, I take that back. Zach and I started watching The Witcher on Netflix. That's very good if you're into that kind of shit.
We started watching that too, actually.
Literally everyone on that show is hot as fuck.
Yeah. I know.
It's honestly a little upsetting.
I know.
We also started Watchmen on HBO. That's also very good if you're into that kind of thing. I mean, you guys kind of aren't. I mean, Wes might be.
I don't. Yeah, we'd have to look at a, like, commercial.
Yeah.
So.
You might kind of dig it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I have. Merry Christmas.
Yep, Merry Christmas.
If we get our shit together tomorrow, our John Bonet episode will be up.
Yep.
But
yeah.
That's
We're going to
pending.
try. I have a very fussy baby right now, and a husband who is not available to watch her at the moment, so...
Fucking Wes. I'm just kidding. Love you, Wes.
Right. Anyways, but yeah, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yes.
And thanks for listening.
Yeah, we'll catch you in the next one, and this was Hot for Justice.
Yep. Bye.
Oh, and goodbye.